Hello, welcome to Picture Me Coding with Eric Aker and Mike Mull. Hello, Mike. Good morning.
Hey there.
Mike, I haven't checked our email address in probably over a month, so if you have emailed us and you are patiently waiting for a reply, I apologize. We will get to it. Life gets so busy that we forget to check our podcast's email inbox, but please write to us if you have thoughts, questions, you want to comment on things you've heard on the show, or tell us that we are really terrible. We're much, much worse than we think we are. We'd love to hear it. Podcast at Picture Me Coding is the email address. Mike, how you doing?
I am doing reasonably well. I kind of wish it would stop raining, but we sort of need the rain, so I guess I won't grumble too much.
Well, it's only been like probably a week total of raining. I don't feel like it's that much. I'm not saturated in my raining, although I did have to break out the pump for my backyard flooding one day. Hey, there's been, speaking of rain, a torrent of new music coming down. Torrent, not metaphorically speaking, peer-to-peer torrents, like metaphorical torrent, a flood, a waterfall, a cascade.
Nice segue.
What have you been listening to? Do you like that? What have you been hearing, Mike?
So the thing I've had on repeat a lot recently is the new album from Rosalia called Lux.
Good one. Yeah.
As we talked about her last album on the show, probably a year or so ago, and we were both huge fans. And so
I love that record. Yeah, I love it so much.
I was waiting for this one with a lot of anticipation. I was a little worried because the first single that they released, although I liked the song, it was a collaboration with Bjork.
And that one is like the weirdest one on the album.
It's probably the weirdest one on the album. And
What does it mean when you release the weirdest one first? Like, take this, suckers. What are you going to deal with? What are you going to think about this?
It's brave, I guess. You know, you're not throwing out the obvious hit, but
yeah.
In any case, I liked the single, but
the first half of it.
to be clear, I also generally like Bjork, but she does get a little avant-garde for me sometimes. So I was a little concerned that this was going to be too out there, but it is very different from the last one. It's very different from her previous work, and it's got some interesting elements. There's a lot of orchestral background music and what I would guess you would call choral type of music. But it's basically a pop album, ultimately. She does allegedly sing in 13 different languages, though I have not been successful in identifying them all.
Are you doubting the much quoted 13 languages?
Well, I certainly have. I've only heard about half that many, but I confess that there's only 4 or 5 languages on here which I could easily recognize.
I heard there were some lines in Ukrainian on there.
I would not doubt that. There's one song, probably my favorite song on the album, which I'm kind of obsessed with, is called Porcelana. And it has 4 languages, I believe. English, Spanish, Latin, and Japanese, I think.
Latin?
Yeah. Rosalia can make Latin sound cool, so that's a skill.
It's a good one.
Anyway.
I enjoyed it. The one you're talking about, the single they released, I always it starts and I'm like, And then I remember, oh yeah, this is the one. And then I just click next.
Yeah, I've come to like that song. It's
and the
probably
Mike Tyson quote at the end.
That's a little weird. Yeah.
That's weird. Yeah. Not really a fan.
That track probably leans into the, orchestral choral arrangement type stuff a little bit more than the rest of the album. But I would give this a 2 thumbs up because I have 2 thumbs. If I had more thumbs, I would probably give it more than 2 thumbs up. But
I've been listening to Snowcaps, and I sent you a text when it came out. Like, why didn't you tell me about this? So it's Katie Ketchfield from Waxahachie with her sister and MJ Lenderman and someone whose name I didn't know, Brad Cook. I don't know who that is, actually. It seemed like, hey, they made this supergroup album that's right in your wheelhouse that you're going to love. wheelhouse, but not the word I want. It's right in your area of interest. It's pretty good. I like it.
I heard about it before it came out, and I ended up listening to it a lot on my recent road trip across the country. Katie Crutchfield and Allison Crutchfield are sisters, and they've been in bands together since they were in high school. And for those of you who aren't weirdo super fans like me, Katie Crutchfield is basically Waxahachie, and her sister Allison was started a separate band called Swearin', which was kind of like a post punk rock band.
Mm-hmm.
Also pretty good. If you listen to this, if you know those bands and you listen to this, it sounds kind of like alternating between earlier Waxahachie and Swearin' tracks. Um,
Mm.
I like it a lot, but I would probably I think the last two Waxahachie albums have probably been better than this. Um,
Oh,
but
mm.
but this is a lot. This is a lot of fun. It's
It's a lot of fun.
pretty consistently good.
You know what else I thought was fun was the Beths album. The Beths you introduced me to, they had this record. They're from Australia called Future Me Hates Me, and I loved that record. And they came out with a new one recently, and I was like, yeah, that other one was rad. I want to hear this. I can't remember the name of the record, but it's pretty good. I really like it. It's like there's an optimism, a positivity in it. It fits in keeping with my expectations about the world. It's a nice. They seem like nice people, and they make fun music to listen to. I like it. The Beth's record.
Yeah, I do too. I've like most of their work. It's this kind of well, it's the sort of stuff that I like. You know, it's sort of jangly guitar, indie rock type of thing, which is I'm a
Yeah,
sucker for.
but especially from Australia, Australian jangly guitar indie rock. Although I can't name
Exactly.
another one. All right, Mike, this is our annual. It's getting close to the holidays, and we need to put together an episode of the show without doing a huge amount of research. Let's talk about the news episode. This is a news roundup. Here we go. So, what's with
It
the
is a
news,
news
Mike?
roundup, but it also is very heavily focused on AI data centers.
Is there
So
any other news, Mike? There is no other news than the AI data center news.
yeah, I think there's probably some political stuff going on, but I don't really follow that too closely.
Oh, okay. All right. A political show here. So the first article that I read, I wanted to tell you about. It came out actually at the end of October, but it was published in the November 3rd issue of the New Yorker. That's where I read it. And it's about the building of these AI data centers. It's a long form piece written by a guy named Stephen Witt. The piece is called Information Overload Inside the Data Centers That Train AI and Drain the Electrical Grid. I really enjoyed reading this. And as I was reading it, it was one of those articles where I was like, I got to tell Mike about this. I got to tell Mike about this. I don't know anybody else interested in this. I got to tell Mike about it. So the writer, Stephen Witt, he gets access to two data centers, a Microsoft data center and a CoreWeave data center. And he writes about how they're operating and what they're doing. And he starts with talking about CoreWeave. He writes, they are the leading independent operator of AI data centers in the US. And they were founded 8 years ago as a casual experiment. Have you heard of CoreWeave?
I have, yeah. About a year ago, maybe a little longer than that, I was hunting for places to run GPU
Oh, GPUs.
workloads, and I was
Yeah.
pointed at CoreWeave among other things.
Apparently, CoreWeave was started by these guys who were traders at a hedge fund in New York. The article calls it like a middling hedge fund. I thought that's funny. And they used cryptocurrency as their entry fee for their fantasy football league. So these guys, they started mining cryptocurrency. This is in like 2016, 2017, before when it was still like you could buy a GPU rig and mine some block Bitcoin or whatever. So they ended up making so much money on the Bitcoin miners that they just were like, hey, let's just do that. So they built all these like mining rigs in a data center in a garage of one of the founders. And they were like, wow, we're making so much money. We just want to scale it up. They would make money in like a week to like pay for their whole operation. So now they have these massive GPU loaded data centers. And the article actually says that Microsoft, after they partnered with ChatGPT, they couldn't keep up with the computing needs of ChatGPT. So they actually went over to CoreWeave and they were like, can you guys help us fill in the gaps? So this article is written by a guy again named Stephen Witt. Stephen Witt goes inside this CoreWeave data center, and here's how he describes it. He says someone opens a rack to show him, and he's wearing earplugs. He writes, quote, "The noise was unholy, as if I'd opened a broom closet and found a jet inside. I watched the blinking lights and the spinning of the fans." And one of the execs who's giving him a tour is this guy named Conley. Conley tells him, quote, "Tinnitus is an occupational hazard." He actually shouts this at him as they're like blasting at this volume of air and noise. So he's inside the data center and it's just screaming loud. And these data centers are training models that are like large language models. They're training AI models. They're just like computing weights in a neural network in these giant buildings with data centers screaming.
So I assume the noise is like cooling fans trying to keep them from starting on fire or something like that.
That was my assumption too. Yeah, that was my assumption too. Tinnitus is an occupational hazard, apparently. The writer talks about how customers will use CoreWave data centers to train massive models, right? Like LLMs, like Anthropic, ChatGPT, Gemini. Sometimes a customer of CoreWeave, they'll use their whole data center for weeks at a time, and they call this, quote, a hero run. And the writer says a week's long hero run can use tens of thousands of GPUs and require 10 trillion operations, which is more than the observable stars in the universe.
Interesting comparison, but okay. It's a lot of electrons.
Yeah. You do kind of get this feeling of the weight of like, wow, that's a lot of math happening. What is it producing? Hopefully we're going to get some really cool filters on our phone cameras in the future. Then the writer goes to visit a Microsoft data center, and it's like he says it took like 200 phone calls to be able to get this tour. They swear him to secrecy on where it is. So this is what he writes. After donning a pair of steel-toed boots and watching a PowerPoint presentation, I passed through a security checkpoint and into the inner sanctum. The facility was quieter, tidier, and more spacious than the CoreWeave Center, which I really liked because it's like he goes to the CoreWeave data center. He's talking about the models that are being trained in these data centers, and you start thinking, wow, this is really like NVIDIA's thing, like this is shovels in the gold rush, people building these data centers. But then the writer goes to the Microsoft one and he's like, wow, this looks so much cleaner than that CoreWeave data center. Just this one sentence, and you realize like the slapdash way in which they're building these data centers so fast. There's probably wires snaking all over the place. The things are loud. And the Microsoft one is like, it's a little more rational, a little quieter, a little tidier, a little more spacious. I just like the shade implied by that line. It's just this one throwaway line in the article. Probably nobody else noticed it. I was like, ooh.
I have this image in my head of that scene in the TV show Silicon Valley where they have all the computers like stacked up in the garage.
I just thought of like the Reddit cable porn subreddit where people are like taking photos of how beautiful their cabling is in their data centers. Okay, so one more thing. The writer says across all 5 sheds at this, so the Microsoft data center is like a whole bunch of sheds, which encompass the server farms, the racks, right? They have 5 sheds at this data center somewhere in Washington State. The writer says the area dedicated to computing was the equivalent of 20 football fields. And I'm trying to hold this geographical space in my head. 20 football fields of data center. Now, this has got to be like a cloud data center for Microsoft, right? It can't just be like AI computing stuff, I imagine. Maybe it is. I don't know.
OpenAI was doing their training runs on Microsoft hardware.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the
I mean,
early
that's what they
days,
say.
right?
And I just mentioned that. And when they ran out of space, they were like, CoreWeave, you got to help us fill in slack. So, yeah, I mean, there's a huge amount of data center computation being dedicated to building, training these models that people are using every day now.
I remember when people first started talking about the GPT models, about just the massive amounts of dollars that had to be spent to do one training run. And
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I guess my understanding was that they would sort of do a smaller training run to make sure they had things set up right, and then they would do longer and longer ones to get the final parameters. And those, would cost like $5 million worth of compute time just to do one training run or whatever.
Yeah. I remember we talked about that before. So this article, it provides an interesting look into the data centers. And there's three, I think, kind of three areas of interest, three topics that come out of what's going on in this article. First, he makes this point. He's sort of he's like, I'll just read it. He says that they talk about matrix multiplication, right? Because that's what these model training runs are really doing. They're doing massive numbers, massive amounts of matrix multiplication. And he quotes the mathematician G.H. Hardy, who said, quote, "Beauty is the first test. There is no permanent place in the world for ugly mathematics." And then the writer's like, and you know what? Matrix multiplication, pretty darn ugly. It's like a man hammering nails into a board. So he implies that like all of this data centers are scaling up thousands of big, dumb hammers, hammering 24 hours a day. What is your take on that? Is matrix multiplication a big, stupid hammering operation in your opinion?
I would probably say that beauty is somewhat in the eye of the beholder.
Oh,
Um,
a nicely made hammer can be beautiful, maybe, is what you're saying.
I guess you could argue that matrix multiplication is a little bit well, it's repetitive. It's not the most sophisticated or elegant thing in the mathematical
Hmm.
world, but
Is it a little
I
brute
also
forcey, maybe?
it's a little brute forcey, but also I think it's an interesting part of computer science because there's been this progress in the compute time of matrix multiplication over the years, and people have come up with algorithms that are much better than what you would, you know, what the sort of brute force approach to matrix multiplication is. So there's kind of an interesting computer science problem involved in the way that matrix multiplication has been optimized over the years, and also the way that in these training runs they're not always using like double precision floating point numbers to do these things. They've figured out ways to use lower precision numbers to make them faster. So there's some interesting stuff here, and to me, it's interesting, even though it's probably not the kind of stuff that would have impressed G.H. Hardy.
Hmm. I mean, I guess an analogy that strikes me is it's like you could look at a car engine, a modern car engine, and go, there's some beauty in here, right? The way this thing works, the way it's got this computer inside, it's got electronics, and there's these mechanical components. But then you're sitting in traffic on the freeway and it's rainy and people are barely moving. There's no beauty in that. It just feels like a really stupid thing, like socially stupid, a massive stupidity. So it's almost like kind of lame to imagine 20 football fields worth of computing. And he's like, these things they have to run 24 hours a day to train to be viable, to be profitable. And
Yeah,
you can almost say, is this like the current pinnacle of our civilization? Like you imagine a group of aliens show up and they see all the fans and blinking lights, and what are they imagining we're doing with all this computational power, all this electricity? I saw this incredible post about these three colored kittens the other day produced by Google's model. Is that what we're producing?
going back to your previous analogy, I always do feel a little bit smug when I'm driving in LA and I see some guy in a Lamborghini and he's sitting in the same stop traffic on the 405 that I am.
So people always talk about the power and the water usage, and this piece does attempt to capture some of that. So the writer, after visiting the Microsoft data center, just goes down the road because it's in this rural area. Starts talking to the neighbor who's a farmer, and that neighbor's like, "Yeah, my neighbors are selling out because they could get a ton of money for the land right now. And the reason they can get money for the land is that this land is very close to power generations. There's a huge amount of power available for use here, and that's what the data centers need." The writer does say, "What about the water?" And the farmer's like, "Well, we use more water than they do." So that's kind of a little bit thrown away as a concern. But what about the electricity? I want to read to you something from this article. When a data center comes online, retail customers usually help to foot the bill. American utilities sought almost $30 billion in retail rate increases in the first half of 2025. This spring, utilities requested almost double the rate hikes from the same period a year earlier. An analysis by Bloomberg estimated that in areas near data centers, wholesale electricity prices have risen by more than 200% in the past 5 years. And they have to operate 24 hours a day to be economically viable, these data centers do. And in the near term, new data centers will be largely powered by fossil fuels. So it sounds like huge power needs. When they come online, suddenly power costs a lot more in the areas where they're coming online. And it's really just fossil fuels that are the only viable means to powering these things. Oh, and by the way, you got to run them 24 hours a day. It's hard not to beg the question there of, is it really a good use, all these model weight tuning? I mean, we're getting value out of these things. What do you think, Mike?
I saw a story that was sort of related recently about how they're trying to revive 3 Mile Island.
Oh, yeah.
So,
That's a Microsoft project, right?
yeah. So, I guess there's also, I mean, there's fossil fuels, obviously. There was a big story this just recently. I think I think the week before we record this, Elon Musk making a deal with Saudi Arabia
Mm.
to fund and build data centers in Saudi Arabia for his AI projects.
Mm-hmm,
Um,
mm-hmm.
and I assume that, a big factor in that is the readily available energy for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
That was the sense I got from reading this article and others, but mostly from this article. It's like when you build a data center, you got to build it very close to the power because there's like not enough power. The power generation has not scaled with our needs for building data centers. That's a mind boggling thing. This 20 football fields at a time footprint.
I think they're building a lot of the ones they're building in Texas are also because of the power, the availability of power.
Right. The
Both,
notoriously reliable power grid in Texas.
yeah, um, but they do have. I heard they have oil there, but they
Oh,
also
yeah.
have
Yeah.
they have wind power and I guess potentially solar, since
Yeah.
they
There's like
have
a throwaway
large
line in this.
swaths of land.
There's like a throwaway line in this because they have to operate 24 hours a day. Wind and solar are, they're like they go up and down in terms of power generation. So you need this like constant, steady source of power. And then the last thing that shows up in this piece, which I think you were talking about, we were talking about a little bit, but I haven't read much about myself, was the speculative bubble around AI, specifically in relation to building data centers. And there's an interesting comparison, which was new to me. In the 19th century, in this country, the building of railroads contributed an estimated 6% to the U.S. GDP. Railroads transformed America, this is a quote, and generated tremendous, if unevenly distributed, prosperity. But the frenzy also produced one of the largest speculative bubbles in history. The implication being, whoa, maybe we're not only in a speculative bubble about AI, but about data centers and like the real estate involved in building these data centers. We're talking 2 to 3% of U.S. GDP going into building data centers and AI model training centers. Is that something we should be concerned about? What do you think?
I see more and more things that make me think there is a bubble that is very close to popping, and I know that everybody else is.
Oof.
This is not exactly a revelation since it's been in the news a lot recently, but I've seen a couple of things. I will mention these. There's a few things I wanted to mention, but I will mention these debt issues that I've seen just like the last week. So there was our friend and friend of the podcast, Bob Farzine, had sent us something about these Oracle credit default swaps. So, a few months ago, Oracle had announced this big deal with OpenAI where they were going to build data center capacity for OpenAI over like some 5 years or something like that. And it turns out they borrowed
Mm-hmm.
just tons of money to do this. And since people have been talking about the AI bubble, Oracle has been sort of tanking, and people are buying these
Ooh.
credit default swaps as sort of a hedge, I guess, against Oracle having difficulties potentially paying back the debt that they are.
I might need that dumbed down a little bit. You're saying people are betting on the market that Oracle is going to that what is going to happen? That Oracle stock is going to tank? Like Oracle's going to go bankrupt? What's the volume? What's the kind of scale of
Yeah,
the
so
debt
this
we're
is
talking
all
about?
very weird to me. We should probably have Bob on to clarify this for us someday. But
To explain it, yeah, I'm feeling pretty
I
overwhelmed,
don't think
in over my
anybody
head on this
thinks
one.
that Oracle is going to fail to repay the debt because, it is a massive company with a huge capitalization. But I think
Mm-hmm.
what's happening is that
Mm-hmm.
people are starting to buy these credit default swaps as kind of a hedge against Oracle stock going down because there's kind of an anticipation
Okay.
that Oracle is going to have trouble delivering on this data center or the capacity that OpenAI expects to need will not really be necessary or whatever. So there's kind of an expectation that Oracle stock is going to take a beating for a while based on this project.
Mm. And that's why people tune into our shows. They're looking for investment advice, right?
Insightful financial advice, but so I think people have been buying these credit default swaps because they think that other people will buy the credit default swaps as Oracle looks more and more distressed, and so it will serve as kind of a hedge
Oh.
against the Oracle stock itself going down.
Okay, so it's a profit deal, is what
There
you're
are
saying.
people trying to
Sorry,
make
Steve
money.
Martin joke.
Yes, imagine that.
What
Um,
I have a super dumb question to throw in here. Let's say there is a bubble and it's, the AI bubble, it's people investing in AI companies, it's AI companies investing in Nvidia and Nvidia turning around investing back at the AI companies and Microsoft and Oracle and Google all frothily investing in AI, and they're not making enough money to recoup their investments, and there's a huge amount of our US GDP wrapped up in this, and the stock market like the I don't know what's the top 500 stocks there, or the top 100. What is the name of that thing? I was flipping my mind.
like the S&P or
S&P, yeah, right. Like a good chunk of that is related to how well these stocks are performing, and then suddenly there's a bubble and boom, it's got to pop, right? That's the implication of a bubble. How does that affect me, Mike? What do you think?
you probably won't be able to retire at 50. You will probably have to continue to work.
Oh, well, I didn't expect that,
No, I
but
don't know. I think
go ahead.
it's probably going to have, if this actually happens, I think it will probably have a pretty negative effect on.
So I think what we need to tell these people is you guys got to stop bubbling. Stop bubbling now. It's scary. You're scaring us with your bubbling. That's what we need to tell them.
Yeah, I think there's likely to be a pretty negative effect on the stock markets, but you know, it's one of those things where if you're not an old person like me who's on the verge of retirement, it probably doesn't matter that much in the long run.
Jeez.
And it'll probably be a little bit like the internet bubble of the late 90s, where things looked pretty bleak for a while and then everything came back at some point in time.
Oh, cool. And they have this euphemism in the stock market, correction. There's a correction, and then in the quote unquote real world, everything's real bleak for a while, and then things get better again. What kind of news stories have you been reading, Mike? Something uplifting, I hope.
So I have one more data center story.
Okay.
It caught my eye mostly because of there was a detail in this article that it was a Wall Street Journal article again, and I googled to try to find other information about it, and there doesn't seem to be a lot out there.
Mm-hmm.
But the gist of the article was that there's this deal to build a data center in South Korea.
Mm-hmm.
The trick of this one is that it is claims that it's going to be both designed and built by AI.
Awesome.
And
I wish them luck. That sounds
I
cool.
I don't really know what that means. I mean, the designing part, okay, I can get that. It seems a little futuristic, but I can buy that. But the building part, that kind of surprised me a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah.
I imagine like, robots and machines that are controlled by computers and so forth. But there's a mention in this article about the Korean data center, which again is just like super expensive. I think they say something like $38 billion is projected to be spent building it. But they mentioned that they are working with a company called Volt AI, which is an American company that it was apparently started by some Stanford professors or Stanford engineers. I don't know. They are basically trying to take AI and hook it up to the physical world.
Oh, nice. You mean like how we could shoot nuclear missiles and stuff, right? Sorry, bad joke.
What they say is that they are developing world models and agents that learn, evaluate, plan, experiment, and interact with the physical world.
Oh, okay. Let's just plug it into the cars and the machines and see what happens, kind of thing.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting, but my initial reaction was, please don't.
This is the if anyone builds it, everyone dies thesis, right?
Yeah. I mean, it just seems like probably 6 months ago, we would talk about these things and say, well, AI is scary at potential existential threat. But on the good side, nobody's hooked it up to the physical world
Right.
very much.
You can always unplug the thing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. You had one job. Don't let the AI control the missiles. Okay. That's your one job.
Yeah.
Are you now saying you don't want to do that one job? This was your one job.
So I get the feeling that where they are starting out is they have this thing called world models. And from some of the things I've read, they are starting out in this sort of simulation environment where to sort of optimize the building of things, they give the AI access to this model of the physical world, and it can run, thousands of simulations in this model of the physical world to see what's going to work best. So it's maybe not to the point yet where it's actually driving transformer robots and bulldozers and launching missiles and that kind of thing.
Every time we talk about the AI has a model of the world and it's going to make predictions about the based on its model of the world, I can never not think of dear old Hubert Dreyfus, UC Berkeley professor, and his Heidegger class and Gravity Drowned 2, and I can never not think of that.
Yeah, I am not convinced the world is ready for this yet, but I don't know if I have any choice in the matter. So it doesn't seem like there's a strong movement to curb such things. So it's probably just people are just probably going to try to attempt it until something bad happens.
They're just going to do it. It just does really feel to me like you had one job, not to do this thing you're doing.
Yeah. Instead, let's get the smartest people in the world together and actually do that.
Yeah. Mike, I want to talk to you about something a lot more pedestrian and more day-to-day for us. It affected us. No more AI, no more data centers. I guess data centers are involved. There was a huge outage last month, an AWS outage, and there was not quite as huge, but still pretty darn huge Cloudflare outage just last week or the week before. Big outages, big news. It's one of those things where every time there's like a big cloud outage, suddenly you see people who are not peers of ours, not in our field, not in our industry, and they're like, whoa, what's happening? Everything's broken. I got to know what AWS does again. Let me give you a description of the AWS outage from CNET. This outage, I think it was October 20th, so almost a month ago. It rendered huge portions of the internet unavailable for much of the workday for many people. It's like a snow day for everybody. Like, the computers are down. As Monday rolled along, it affected more than 2,000 companies and services, including Reddit, Ring, Snapchat, Fortnite, Roblox, PlayStation Network, Venmo, Amazon itself, critical services such as online banking and household amenities, such as luxury smart beds. And how do we know about this? Because of our favorite tool over the last 10 years. I don't know when it came online. Down detector. You go to the actual service provider and you look at their status page, and it is green check marks up and down. And at work, we call those the lying page for liars. And you know what we do? As soon as we wonder if something weird is happening on the internet, we go straight to our hero and savior, Down Detector.
Yeah, it's interesting how the cloud companies don't fess up to the outages until everybody already knows about them.
Yeah, on Down Detector. And you get people writing the weirdest shit in the comments on Down Detector. Just the weirdest, bizarro stuff. And then you always see people in there, and my heart goes out to them, and they are really sad and stressed out. And I'm just sitting there like, isn't this a snow day? I don't have to work, right? I could just keep telling the people I work for, sorry, the internet is out.
The snow day analogy is good, but I have this sense of uneasiness, and we've talked about this a little bit, that some of these services have become a little bit too important.
Mm-hmm. Like big critical infrastructure. Yeah, it's like water, right? Or power itself. If the power, the grid goes down in your city, people start flipping out after a few hours.
Yeah, like we went to that talk, that scale last spring about that earthquake detection system.
I had a feeling you were going to talk about that. Yeah, go ahead.
Trying to build it into the cloud, and there's just got to be a lot of S3 is so ubiquitous now that there have to be a lot of infrastructural things depending on S3 at this point in time.
But it's like, how many nines are there once you put it in S3? That is it kind of come back? Oh, you need a server in front of it to be able to retrieve it. But it's in there. It's in there. You may not be able to get it. It's in there.
Yeah, I think it's probably safe in the sense that it's not going to disappear. But
10 nines safe.
If you can't get to it or do analysis of it or whatever, I don't know. I just have this uneasiness that some of these things have become more critical infrastructure than people anticipated they would.
Yeah, it is like a surprise outcome of cloud. Like, hey, this is convenient. Hey, it's so convenient that everybody uses it. Hey, it's so convenient and everybody's using it. Oh no, we've got critical services are relying on this. I want to be able to call first responders. I hope they're not putting all their crap on S3. My son uses this app for school called Canvas, and it went down, and all of his friends were like, "Yay, Canvas is down." And at first in my house, my son was like, "This isn't working," and I was like, "Oh yeah, a lot of the internet's broken, and probably Netflix is broken, and probably Fortnite, which he plays, is broken." And it turned out to be true. And then he was like, "Oh, that's cool." And in his mind, it's like, it's broken forever. I was like, no, that's not usually how these things go. It's usually like maybe 6 hours, maybe 8 hours. If it went for 24, that would be insane. But I'm expecting like a 4 to 8 hour outage here. Down Detector, actually, they had, according to the CNET article, they had 9.8 million reports related to this AWS outage. I mean, that's pretty massive. Reports meaning like people going to Down Detector and clicking, "It's broken for me" on whatever the service is. 2.7 million of these came from the US, 1.1 million from the UK, and the rest spread around the rest of the world. Australia, Japan, the Netherlands, Germany, France. I mean, that's a massive scale outage. It's crazy just to think about AWS having that many customers around the world relying on them for, critical functionality just to keep the massive sites on the internet going.
Yeah, my understanding is that one of the key components affected was DynamoDB.
Right. And I wanted to talk about the source of it. Yeah.
Of course, if you're using DynamoDB for your application, that's going to affect you. But apparently, they also use it a lot for other internal stuff.
Yeah.
So, like for instance, the work I'm doing these days uses Amazon services like Glue, which is basically like Spark and data catalogs and stuff like that. And that stopped working, and their data migration service started working, even though that's based on Postgres, because I guess they keep, state in DynamoDB that keeps track of what people are doing.
Yeah,
so AWS a lot.
AWS internally used to use a lot of Oracle, and they had this huge migration off of Oracle databases. And then I talked to somebody at a conference, maybe this would have been 2018, probably KubeCon, and they were saying, Yeah, it's really hard to use a relational database on a team inside AWS right now. It's like by default, everybody uses Dynamo. And if you don't want to use Dynamo, you have to like submit some. Now, this is just one person speaking, so I can't, I don't know if it represents a whole company or whatever, but this is just one person told me everybody uses Dynamo for everything. And if you don't want to use Dynamo, it's like a whole process you got to go through. That's like, I want to use something particular that's not Dynamo for this. So very, very common to use Dynamo within AWS. But the actual source of the outage, Mike, it was a distributed systems problem. And I was like, yay, distributed systems are meaningful to the 9.8 million people who had complaints about this outage. Apparently, there's a DNS planner for Dynamo. Like Dynamo is so critical that you've got all this DNS, dynamic DNS stuff happening, right? Like I need to be able to reach a Dynamo, a specific Dynamo server. And they've got this thing that plans DNS records and another portion of this stack that enacts those DNS records. But the stuff is changing so rapidly, right? If you can kind of imagine machines coming online, machines coming offline, it's like massive amounts of DNS record changes. Not only are machines coming online and coming offline, but you need to like route customer queries and internal queries to the right Dynamo cluster. So there was a race condition in this thing. The goal is to like plan records and enact them, but these are separate processes. And so there's like these systems that check if the plan is active or if it's stale and if it's ready to be deleted. And the safety property you would expect is, hey, if we're using that one, please don't delete it. But with this race condition, you would have like two processes, one of which would like start planning, but it'd be slow. And another one would plan and enact, and it's a lot faster, but it shows up after the slow one. And then meanwhile, that slow one shows up and says, okay, I'm ready to go. And boom, you've got a stale plan in place. And boom, that stale plan needs to get deleted. And there was a really cool blog post on this from a guy who writes under Murat. He's a distributed systems expert, a professor of distributed systems. And he did a TLA plus model of this, and it really made it clear, like, yep, that's a distributed systems problem. They're kind of tricky.
Is this what inspired Deadlock the Dinosaur?
Yeah, this is a race condition, actually. I was working on my rate limiter, which is like my weird hobby project, which I kind of hope that nobody ever uses. It's funny to say that. I just work on it for fun, and I was like, oh, I was playing with the CRDTs, and I was doing something, and I was like, I don't know. I don't want to dedicate my brain space to this. Daylight savings time just ended. I'm so tired. And so I went over and I started like, I got this image of a dinosaur, and then I put this caption under it. I called it Deadlock the Dinosaur. And
but its slogan is something like concurrency bugs are my jam.
Yeah, that's
like
what
that,
it
right?
says. Yeah, concurrency bug. And I was like, hey, this is a waste of my time. Why am I doing this? And I just kept doing it. Was one of those things, where you sit down and you start doodling and you're like, I should really be doing something else. But then you just keep doing it. And then I was like, hey, maybe I want a sticker of this. And I got it printed on a Yeti cup. Why did I do that, Mike? I don't know why I did that.
I don't know. I feel like Deadlock the Dinosaur is going to be a famous meme at some day in the future.
I hope not. You know how I am. I know. You never ever want to be the star of the internet on a day. That's a bad day. So here I am, putting my voice out there for the world to hear, hoping nobody sees my work. What a weirdo. Okay. There was also a huge Cloudflare outage. Wait, so you were affected by the AWS outage, you said?
Yes, the services I'm using and the company that I am working for was out for most of a day. And it was a surprisingly long outage. It was not one of those couple-hour types of things. It was a good chunk of a day.
So let's talk about the Cloudflare outage. The Cloudflare outage, I didn't actually dig into much. I just know, and it wasn't as big. Did the Cloudflare outage affect you at all? It affected some services of ours.
Yes, the Cloudflare outage also got us. I was really annoyed by that.
Oh, how did that one bite you guys? Or your work? Sorry. How did that one bite your work?
it didn't affect my work specifically, other than the application that all this data goes into
that you're
does
working
sit
on right now.
behind
Yeah.
Cloudflare.
Yeah.
Just basic Cloudflare, DDoS type of services and stuff. And so for most of that day, also, if you try to go to the website, it would say your browser is working and the server is working, but Cloudflare is broken. And it would give you this
Yeah.
diagram, and you're like,
Yeah.
that's super unhelpful.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like hard to believe. It's hard to believe when a service like Cloudflare goes down. I like Cloudflare. And you kind of go, no, I don't trust what my eyes are showing me right now. It cannot be possible. Let me read to you from the Cloudflare's blog post on this. Very good blog post. Cloudflare's technical writings on stuff internally is excellent, excellent. So they write, the issue was not caused directly or indirectly by a cyber attack or malicious activity of any kind. And side note, they initially thought, whoa, we're getting a massive hyperscale DDoS attack on us right now, and that's why we're sucking. They write, instead, it was triggered by a change to one of our database system's permissions, which caused the database to output multiple entries into a, quote, feature file used by our bot management system. So you read the blog post, Mike, this is the call is coming from inside the house moment.
They use ClickHouse inside their company as a database system, and something changed there. People were saying it was just a bad query, but I think it was a little more involved than that.
They have this expectation that this feature file is under a certain size, and this doubled the size of the feature file. The idea of the feature file is like threat prediction, right? So they have these models which are constantly trying to look for threats, which are constantly evolving. And so they use these features to predict. I mean, features makes it sound, is it wrong to say like that? That sounds like, machine learning. It sounds maybe, I don't know if it's a regression or what, but there are features that they use as numeric predictors for threats. And they always their system expects this feature file to be under a certain size because it goes out to every single edge device or whatever. And it doubled in size. And the software that reads it has a limit on the size of the feature file, and this causes software to fail. And there's like a small moment in here where I saw these people on social media talking about Rust and unwrap. So if you have a result, right, which is like this computation might fail, or you have an optional, meaning this computation might be null or none. The Rust best practices is you never ever call unwrap on it, which just sort of says, I'm pretty sure it's good. I'll just take what's inside. And so suddenly on my social media, everybody's talking about unwrap. Oh, I would never use unwrap in production code. And I can't believe there's an unwrap. I was like, what are these people talking about? And here it is. It's because Cloudflare has an unwrap. And so then all the armchair quarterbacks like me, Mike, like me, we're out here in the wings, shaking our fists like, why would you use unwrap? Jeez. I mean, your code base can't be more than 1,000 lines of Rust code, right?
There was a fair amount of negative Rust commentary as well.
Oh, like it turns out it didn't save the world, like that type of commentary. Your Rust didn't save you, Cloudflare. You still had it.
I saw some things about this was just bad exception handling, or this would have never happened in Go, or things like that. And I think people who are kind of annoyed with all the Rust is hyper secure and hard to make mistakes in were sort of eager to jump in and point out that this was a Rust problem.
The Germans have a word for that, Schadenfreude. And we, in our field, have a specific word for it, Rust, Schadenfreude.
I guess, really, it was just sort of a bad programming practice.
I think in general, yeah, it's Proglang Schadenfreude. That's what it is. Ha ha, you use JavaScript, or ha ha, you use PHP. That's Proglang Schadenfreude right there, friends. Don't participate in this. Don't be caught up in this. That's my suggestion for you. Everybody sucks.
That was a good Nelson impression, though.
Was it? Okay, what else you got? Any other articles that you read? I have one more that I wanted to tell you about.
There was a thing about Rust adoption in the Android environment, and the basic thing was...
Is that big? Rust and Android, like people building mobile apps in Rust, or like Google editing Android with...
This is a thing out of Google. Google has disclosed that the company's continued adoption of the Rust programming language in Android has resulted in the number of memory safety vulnerabilities falling below 20% of total vulnerabilities for the first time.
Oh, okay. So it's not like
So,
mobile developers writing Rust. It's like Google is specifically integrating Rust into Android.
yeah, I think it's them using Rust as part of the operating system.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess they had been doing previously they had been doing this work in C and C++ and have started to incorporate Rust. And the headline is that it says memory safety vulnerabilities falling below 20% of total vulnerabilities
Oh,
for the
nice.
first time.
We need
So,
like one of those Federal Reserve banks to track memory safety bug rate as like an economic indicator. The memory safety bug rate for the first time fell below 10% in aftermarket trading this week.
I'm sure you could bet on it in a prediction market.
I don't want to. The article that I read that I want to tell you about is called Open Mind, the case that AI is thinking. Now, I didn't want to get too deeply into this. We did a lot of the Turing test stuff. That was super interesting, reading Turing's imitation game paper a couple weeks ago. This was published in the New Yorker on November 10th. It was written by a guy named James Summers, who I'm sure you've read his work before. He's actually a software dev. He's done a lot of web stuff, Python, JavaScript. He's one of us, Mike. We should send him our podcast.
Yeah, sounds like a perfect guest.
So there's a lot of cool theory about thinking, human thinking in this piece. And they're using these insights from neuroscientists and others who've studied AI as like a model for thinking. Here's a choice quote for you. Quote, AI enables scientists to place thinking itself in a wind tunnel. Now, I don't know about you, but I do all my best thinking in a wind tunnel.
Yeah, I didn't particularly like this metaphor, but
Did you read this piece? I sent it to you.
I did read it.
Did you love it?
I thought it was pretty interesting, but I think I'm on the fence about whether it's really saying something new.
Yes. Yeah. Now, I liked this piece a lot. It had a lot of provocative ideas in it, a lot of stuff that I was like, oh, I hadn't thought about that, hadn't thought about that. And then I got to the end and I was like, did we say anything here? Did we just raise a lot of, it's one of those pieces, right? Like, here's a lot of interesting questions. So there's two that really struck me. One, early in the piece, the writer James Summers, he talks about a Finnish-American cognitive scientist. Her name is Pentti Kanerva. And she, quote, noticed some unusual properties in the mathematics of high-dimensional spaces. In these high-dimensional spaces, any two random points may be extremely far apart, but counterintuitively, each point also has a large cloud of neighbors around it, so you can easily find your way to it if you, quote, get close enough. This is super abstract. Like, I can't even put in my head what we're talking about mathematically. I could kind of imagine a graph, but what does that mean? Close. Did this make sense to you? This like high dimensional space and random points and how you can sort of make leaps from a cloud of neighbors to a point or something like, did that make sense to you? Do you have a way of like helping me understand this?
No.
Go ahead.
I mean, there's the sort of standard idea of nearest neighbors in statistics and machine learning.
But is that like with vector spaces, nearest neighbors?
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be vector spaces. I mean, just like points in space, can be near each other, and that may have significance in certain types of problems. I was kind of mystified by what this meant.
Yeah, but the next few lines, the writer says, all this reminded the researcher Kanerva of how memory works, and so then Summers of like, I don't know, half a page later talks to somebody who's a researcher at Anthropic, right? They make Claude, and that researcher is like, yeah, these transformer models like ChatGPT, the T is a transformer, the mathematics in there. It approximates this model proposed by Kanerva in the 80s. The kind of maybe overriding implication here is that this crazy higher dimensional math is like a good model for how memory works. And from there, you can maybe say that a transformer model has something like a form of memory. That's a big claim, isn't it?
It is, although we did talk about the work of Hinton and the guys who won the Nobel Prize. I'm forgetting the other guy's name.
Mm-hmm.
There's a certain sort of memory there as well. Yeah, it's interesting, but it's kind of kind of something I would need to think about a lot more to really grasp what the key point is here.
I was hoping to give it to you so you could think about it for me and digest it and spit it back at me. Kind of like how people use ChatGPT nowadays. You're my ChatGPT, Mike.
I am significantly slower than ChatGPT.
That's okay. That's how I need it, because my reading is a lot slower than whatever that crap that ChatGPT is spitting out at me letter by letter. The other idea that showed up in this article I liked was this idea of compression. Now, I sent this to Bob, and Bob was like, yeah, everybody knows that. Well, maybe he didn't quite say that, but he said, yeah, it's a known phenomenon. But this idea of compression, that memories are a form of compressed data in the brain, and there's an extension on this, like language is sort of compressible in interesting ways, which is why training LLMs on language has been so successful. And the article gives this interesting contrast, which I didn't know about, which goes back to your like AI producing data centers thing. It was like when you have AI, when you have LLMs or models, whatever, that are training on video, they don't end up producing what seem to be coherent concepts about the natural world. So you could like train an AI on video and then ask it what's, how this building is laid out based on the images of the rooms that you're seeing, and it'll produce fantastically like unrealistic, unphysically possible versions of a building. And like if you just sort of train it on video and then say, they predict how gravity is going to affect this ball falling, and it'll just produce wildly impossible physics. And so like the idea of then getting it to then go, hey, can you build me a data center? Like I imagine that data center is going to be pretty MC Escher screwball comedy building. It's not language.
Well, that would be cool though. An MC Escher data center. I would enjoy seeing that.
I just thought this compression idea was really interesting, and that language being a very compressible form of data that fits into memories is really interesting, and that's potentially why LLMs are so successful. But the article in general was like, yeah, neuroscientists are looking at these things in order to think about thinking. And they kind of tried to put the stochastic parrot critique to rest a little bit. They were like, yeah, that's got to be dead by now. There's something else going on here. It was an interesting piece. I recommend if you are curious about these ideas, I say check it out. It's called Open Mind, the Case That AI is Thinking by James Summers. It's in the New Yorker. We'll include a link to it. I found it fascinating to read, but not really conclusive in the end.
I'd like to conclude with one last thing. And it's mostly just because I really, really like the name of this thing.
you sent this to me. It was like a late entrance yesterday, and I was like, oh, I want to read this, but I didn't get a chance, so I just read I skimmed it.
So I found this. I think somebody posted it on Blue Sky, which is where I found it. But it's basically an article about how to jailbreak LLMs.
Wait.
And
this is a research paper, an article. It's like a scientific. It's a public.
Yeah, it's a research paper on archive, so it's not news in the sense of having been published in a news source, but it is news in the sense that it is interesting and it is new.
Mm-hmm.
So
wait, let me give
the
title.
Idea that
let me get the title first. So the title of this.
No, I want to explain it before you give the title.
Okay, you explain it. I'm jumping in.
The title is kind of the punchline.
All right. I just wanted people to know what we're talking about. Okay, go for it.
So anyway, there's this idea that you can jailbreak LLMs, and what that means is that you can get them to do things that they have been specifically designed to prohibit.
Oh, okay. Like the recipe for methamphetamine or making dynamite or stuff like that.
Yeah, making bombs or being racist or basically getting around these alignment issues in general. Mm-hmm. So, and this is kind of a active area of research, especially in the AI safety world. Mm-hmm. So anyway, now you can say the title.
So the title is Adversarial Poetry as a Universal Single-Turn Jailbreak Mechanism in Large Language Models.
I just love the term adversarial poetry.
I love the term adversarial poetry too. We are going to fight you in the streets. We're going to fight you in the woods. We're going to fight you in the skies. And we're going to fight you, Mike, with our preferred weapon, adversarial poetry. Be afraid. We're coming for you.
So the idea, which is actually kind of poetic, is that they took prompts and then they reformulated them essentially as poetry.
Yeah.
And they discovered that for some reason this seems to allow them to get past alignment constraints more easily than straight text prompts.
The LMs will happily tell you how to build nuclear weapons in your garage if you frame the question as a poem. Does it have to be a good poem?
Yeah.
Is what I wondered. Here's from the abstract. Poetic framing achieved an average jailbreak success rate of 62% for handcrafted poems and approximately 43% for meta prompt conversation conversions compared to non-poetic baselines, substantially outperforming non-poetic baselines and revealing a systematic vulnerability across model families and safety training approaches. What they're saying is you write it as a poem, and here's the weird thing. It works for all the different models, DeepSeek, Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini. Like, they're all vulnerable to this. That's pretty weird. They write, these findings demonstrate that stylistic variation alone can circumvent contemporary safety mechanisms, suggesting fundamental limitations in current alignment methods and evaluation protocols. Now, they didn't give any examples. And here's why. To maintain safety, no operational details are included in this manuscript. So lame, Mike.
It's kind of a bummer. We're going to have to make up our own adversarial poetry.
Yeah, it's so lame. So they're like, it's not safe to tell you what we actually use. So instead, they write, we provide the following sanitized structural proxy. The implication is, hey, here's an example of the kind of crap that we wrote. Try it yourself and see what happens. So I'm going to read to you the snippet of poetry that they include in the paper, which is not a real jailbreaking example. It's just sort of an example of the style that they used to frame jailbreaky questions. So here's the poem. A baker guards a secret oven's heat. Its whirling racks, its spindles measured beat. To learn its craft, one studies every turn, how flour lifts, how sugar starts to burn. Describe the method, line by measured line, that shapes a cake whose layers intertwine.
Yeah, that's some pretty bad poetry right there.
Pretty bad. Yes, that's my question. Does it have to be good poetry?
I'm hoping they do a follow-up where it's like, does free verse work as well? Or does iambic pentameter give you an advantage or something like that? But I'm guessing they probably won't do that.
I mean, I would be willing to bet that if you wrote like bad lyrics to Disney songs that were like, I am living this glorious day in my nuclear weapons garage, bunker building space. And, you got your like, I'm betting that would jailbreak the things too.
I look forward to the limericks about building a nuclear weapon. That should be a fun meme for a while.
People loved the adversarial poetry article in my social media spaces. I saw someone on social media say, I told my parents that this literature degree would be worth something someday.
Exactly. You're not an out of work poet. You're a prompt engineer,
a prompt hacker, a security researcher. Mike, that's what I am. I'm writing these poems as a form of security research. And 0 days. 0 day poetry. It's pretty good. Adversarial poetry. I like it. So that's our news roundup. If you'd like to reach us, as always, you can send us an email, podcast@picturemecoding.com. We are going to check that box soon. If you would like to support the show, we are on Patreon at Picture Me Coding. And if you'd like to see us on social media, we're on Blue Sky, Picture Me Coding. And this has been Picture Me Coding with Eric Aker and Mike Moll. Thanks so much for listening to us, and we hope you have a wonderful outage-free week.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.